Karen thought her scheme was flawless. Tow away this RV and pocket the cash. But she didn't know the driver was a federal transportation officer. As she hooked up the RV, he stormed out, badge in hand, ready to bring the full force of the law down on her. Marlene nervously watched from her RV window as the woman in the tow truck hooked up her vehicle. "This can't be happening," she muttered, heart pounding. Just an hour ago, she had pulled into this rest stop, eager to stretch her legs. But now, some brazen criminal was trying to steal her home on wheels. She gripped the steering wheel, weighing her options. Should she confront the woman? Call the police? Her stomach twisted with fear. This RV was her whole life. If it got stolen, she'd be homeless. The tow truck lurched forward, her RV trailing behind. Marlene's eyes went wide. "Oh no, you don't," she shouted, flinging open the door. She marched up to the driver's side window, fists clenched. "Hey, what do you think you're doing?" The woman, a frazzled-looking middle-aged blonde, peered down at her with contempt. "I'm towing this heap of junk. It's been parked here for days. Abandoned property is fair game." Marlene gaped at her. "Abandoned? This is my home. You can't just steal it." The woman rolled her eyes. "Listen, lady, I don't have time for your sob story. Either cough up the fees or kiss this rust bucket goodbye." Marlene's mind raced. She had to think fast. All right, hold on. Let me get my wallet." As she turned to go back inside, a flash of silver on her dashboard caught her eye. Her Federal Transportation Officer badge gleamed in the sunlight. An idea sparked. Marlene grabbed the badge, jaw set with determination. This was about to get interesting. She marched back to the tow truck, holding the badge high. "Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to unhook my vehicle immediately." The woman scoffed. "And who do you think you are?" Marlene squared her shoulders. "Federal Transportation Officer. This RV is my personal property, and you're attempting to steal it. I suggest you unhook it right now, or I'll be forced to place you under arrest." The woman's eyes widened in shock. "What? No, you can't be." Marlene cut her off. "I can, and I will. Now step out of the truck. Keep your hands where I can see them." The woman frantically fumbled with the controls, unhooking the RV. Marlene watched, adrenaline coursing through her veins. Finally, the RV was free. She hurried back inside, her heart still racing. "That's right. You better run," she shouted out the window as the tow truck sped away. Marlene slumped into the driver's seat, hands trembling. She couldn't believe what had just happened. That woman had tried to steal her home. But thanks to her quick thinking and that federal badge, she'd managed to scare her off. Still, the encounter had left her shaken. She fired up the engine, eager to put some distance between herself and this rest stop. As she pulled back onto the highway, one thought consumed her mind. What was she going to do if Karen came back? Marlene's RV rumbled down the lonely stretch of highway, her heart still pounding from the earlier confrontation. She gripped the steering wheel, mind racing. That woman, Karen, as she'd called herself, had nearly made off with Marlene's entire life. The thought of losing her home on wheels was terrifying. She depended on this RV for shelter, transportation, everything. If it had been stolen, she would have been utterly lost. Marlene shuddered, trying to push the images from her mind. But she couldn't shake the nagging fear that Karen might come back, determined to finish the job. Up ahead, she spotted a small diner. Pulling into the parking lot, she decided it was time to refuel and regroup. As she stepped out of the RV, she patted the dashboard fondly. "Don't worry, girl. I'm not going to let anyone take you away from me," she murmured. Inside the diner, Marlene found a quiet booth in the corner. A kindly waitress approached, offering her a menu. "What can I get you, Han?" the woman asked, her voice warm and motherly. "Just a cup of coffee, please," Marlene replied, offering a weary smile. And maybe a little advice, if you don't mind. The waitress nodded. Of course, dear. Trouble on the road. Marlene hesitated, then launched into the story. The terrifying encounter with Karen. The way she'd had to pull out her federal badge to scare the woman off. By the time she finished, the waitress's eyes were wide with alarm. My goodness, that's just awful, the woman exclaimed, shaking her head. To think someone would try to steal your home like that. Are you all right, honey? Marlene nodded, taking a sip of the steaming coffee the waitress had just placed in front of her. I'm okay, I think. Just a little shaken up. I'm just worried she might come back, you know. The waitress pursed her lips, brow furrowed in thought. Well, if I were you, I'd be mighty careful. That woman sounds like real trouble. Maybe you ought to think about finding a safer place to park for the night, somewhere with security or even a police station. Marlene mulled over the suggestion, nodding slowly. That's a good idea. I can't stay out on the open road, not with her still out there. She sighed heavily. I just wish I knew what she's planning. I feel so vulnerable, you know. The waitress reached across the table, giving Marlene's hand a reassuring squeeze. I understand, dear, but try not to worry too much. You've got that badge of yours. Use it if you have to. And don't be afraid to call the authorities if you feel threatened. You just focus on getting yourself to a safe place, all right? Marlene managed a grateful smile. All right. Thank you, really. I appreciate you listening. As the waitress moved on to her next table, Marlene stared down into the rich, dark liquid of her coffee. She couldn't shake the uneasy feeling that this wasn't over. Karen was still out there, and she had a score to settle. Marlene would need to stay one step ahead of her, no matter what it took. Karen gripped the steering wheel of her tow truck, knuckles turning white. She couldn't believe what had just happened. That woman had the nerve to pull a federal badge on her. She'd been so close to pulling off the perfect crime. The RV had been parked at that rest stop for days, clearly abandoned. It was an easy target. But then that infuriating woman had the audacity to claim it as her own and threatened to arrest her. Karen's jaw clenched in fury. She had to get that RV back. It was her ticket out of this dead-end life, her chance to finally make some real money. That RV was worth a fortune, and she wasn't about to let some self-righteous transportation officer take it away from her. Punching the accelerator, she sped down the highway, mind whirring. She needed a plan, a way to outsmart that woman and her phony badge. But what? As she drove, an idea slowly formed. A dangerous, risky idea, but one that just might work. A devious grin spread across her face. Oh, you're not getting away that easy, sweetheart, she muttered under her breath. I'm going to make you wish you'd never crossed paths with Karen. An hour later, Karen pulled into a shady motel parking lot. Stepping out of the truck, she made her way to a dilapidated room at the far end of the lot. Rapping on the door, she waited impatiently until a burly, tattooed man answered. Well, if it isn't my favorite repo man, Karen purred, flashing him a coy smile. I've got a job for you. The man, Hank, raised a bushy eyebrow. Yeah? What's in it for me? Karen's grin widened. How does a nice fat cut of the profits sound? I've got an RV that needs liberating. Hank's eyes gleamed with interest. Go on. As Karen laid out her plan, Hank's expression shifted from skepticism to sheer delight. This was going to be good. All right, sweetheart. I'm in, he growled, cracking his knuckles. Just tell me where and when. Karen patted his arm, her own fingers trembling with excitement. Oh, don't you worry. I'll be in touch. Turning on her heel, she strode back to her truck, mind racing. That RV was as good as hers, and this time, that pesky federal officer wouldn't be able to stop her. Marlene pulled her RV into the brightly lit parking lot of the local police station, letting out a long, weary sigh. After her unsettling encounter with Karen, She just couldn't bring herself to risk another night on the open road. As she stepped out of the vehicle, she glanced around nervously, half expecting to see the tow truck lurking in the shadows. But the lot was quiet, save for a few other RVs and the occasional passing patrol car. Steeling her nerves, Marlene approached the station's front doors. A friendly-looking officer greeted her as she stepped inside. "Evening, ma'am. What can I do for you?" Marlene hesitated, then launched into an explanation of what had happened. The attempted theft, her use of the federal badge to scare off the woman. The officer's brow furrowed with concern as she listened. "That's a serious situation, ma'am. And you say this woman might come back." He shook his head grimly. "I'd be happy to let you park your RV in our lot for the night. We have security cameras and patrols that should help deter any would-be thieves." Marlene felt a wave of relief wash over her. "That would be wonderful, officer. I really appreciate it. I can't risk being out there on my own, not with her still out there." The officer nodded understandingly. "Absolutely. We'll keep an eye on your RV. Don't you worry. If that woman shows up, we'll be ready for her." As Marlene settled her RV into a spot near the front of the lot, she couldn't help but feel a glimmer of hope. Maybe, just maybe, she'd finally be safe from Karen's clutches. But that hope quickly gave way to unease as the night wore on. Every creak, every shadow, made her jump. She found herself continually peering out the window, searching for any sign of the tow truck. What if Karen did come back? Would the police really be able to stop her? Marlene's stomach twisted with anxiety. She couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't over, not by a long shot. As the hours ticked by, Marlene's eyelids grew heavy. Eventually, she drifted off into an uneasy sleep, haunted by visions of Karen and her wicked grin. Little did she know, that very woman was already putting her sinister plan into motion. While Marlene rested, oblivious and vulnerable, Karen was closing in, ready to strike. The darkness of night cloaked the police station parking lot as Karen pulled her tow truck into position, her eyes narrow with determination. She had spent the last several hours meticulously planning her next move, and now the time had come to put her scheme into action. Beside her, Hank cracked his knuckles, a wicked grin plastered across his face. "All right, sweetheart, let's do this. Where's the RV?" Karen pointed a manicured finger towards the gleaming vehicle parked near the front of the lot. "There, the silver one. That's our target." Hank chuckled darkly. "Piece of cake. You ready?" Karen nodded, a devious smile forming on her lips. "Oh, I was born ready." Quickly and quietly, the pair slipped out of the truck and approached the RV. Hank readied his tools, while Karen kept a careful lookout for any sign of the police. "Hurry up," she hissed, her heart pounding. "We don't have all night." Hank grunted in response, his beefy hands working deftly to unhook the RV from its spot. Marlene, oblivious to the unfolding drama just outside her door, slept on. After what felt like an eternity, the RV was finally free. Hank and Karen scrambled to secure it to the tow truck, their movements hushed and hurried. "There, all set," Hank whispered, wiping the sweat from his brow. "Let's get the hell out of here before." His words were cut off by the sudden blare of a siren. Both their heads snapped towards the police station, where a patrol car was now barreling towards them, lights flashing. "Shit," Karen cursed, yanking open the truck door. "Drive, Hank, drive." Hank didn't need to be told twice. He slammed on the gas, the tow truck lurching forward with the RV in tow. The patrol car gave chase, its siren echoing through the night. Inside the RV, Marlene jolted awake, her heart racing. She'd heard the commotion outside, the familiar rumble of her vehicle being moved. Panic seized her as she realized what was happening. "No, no, no," she cried, scrambling to the dashboard. She grasped the federal badge, steeling herself for a confrontation. This was it, her last chance to stop Karen and save her home. Flinging open the door, Marlene raced outside, badge in hand. "Stop right there," she shouted, her voice shrill with desperation. But the tow truck didn't slow. Instead, it sped up, the distance between it and the pursuing police car growing ever wider. Marlene watched in horror as her beloved RV disappeared into the night. "Come back," she screamed, her cries swallowed by the roar of the engines. Tears streamed down her face as she realized her last-ditch effort had failed. Karen had won, and Marlene had lost everything. Marlene stood in the middle of the empty parking lot, her heart sinking as she watched her beloved RV vanish into the night. Karen and her henchmen had somehow managed to evade the pursuing police car, leaving Marlene feeling helpless and devastated. She sank to her knees, tears streaming down her face. That RV had been her entire world, her home, her sanctuary, her last remaining link to a life she'd once known. And now it was gone, stolen right out from under her. Clutching the federal badge in her trembling hands, Marlene let out an anguished cry. "No, no, this can't be happening," she wailed. The kind police officer who had offered her refuge approached cautiously, his expression laced with concern. "Ma'am, are you all right? We're doing everything we can to try and track down that RV." Marlene looked up at him, her eyes red-rimmed and desperate. "You have to find it," she pleaded. "That RV, it's my whole life. I can't lose it. I just can't." The officer nodded sympathetically. "We understand, ma'am. Our dispatch has already put out an all-points bulletin. We'll find it, I promise." Marlene could only nod weakly in response, her body racked with sobs. Everything she owned, everything she was gone. She felt completely and utterly adrift, unmoored from the life she'd known. As the officer hurried back to his patrol car, Marlene huddled on the pavement, clutching the federal badge like a lifeline. She had to get that RV back. It was her only hope, her last chance at reclaiming the stability and security she'd once taken for granted. But the longer she waited, the more her hope began to fade. What if the police couldn't track it down? What if Karen and her accomplice managed to disappear for good? Marlene's stomach twisted with worry and despair. She couldn't bear the thought of losing everything. That RV was her home, her identity, her very sense of self. Without it, she would be truly lost. Somewhere in the distance, a siren wailed, cutting through the eerie silence of the night. Marlene's head snapped up, a glimmer of hope igniting within her. Maybe, just maybe, the police had found a lead. Scrambling to her feet, she raced towards the sound, her heart pounding. She had to be there, had to see what was happening. This was her one chance to get her life back. As she drew closer, Marlene could see a cluster of police cars surrounding something in the distance. Her breath caught in her throat as she caught a glimpse of familiar silver paneling. Could it be? Marlene's heart pounded as she raced towards the cluster of police cars, her eyes fixed on the familiar silver paneling of her stolen RV. Relief and hope surged through her, mingling with the adrenaline coursing through her veins. As she drew closer, she could see that the RV was surrounded, with officers swarming around it. Karen and her accomplice, Hank, were being handcuffed and escorted to separate patrol cars. Marlene felt a triumphant grin tugging at the corners of her mouth. They had been caught. After all the terror and uncertainty, justice was finally being served. She approached the scene cautiously, clutching her federal badge tightly in her hand. The lead officer, the same one who had offered her sanctuary in the police station parking lot, spotted her and hurried over. "Ma'am, we've got your RV back," he announced, his voice laced with relief. "These two tried to make a getaway, but we were able to track them down and stop them." Marlene let out a shaky breath, her eyes brimming with tears. "Thank you, officer. I can't even begin to express how grateful I am." The officer placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "We're just glad we could help. That RV means a lot to you, doesn't it?" Marlene nodded, the tears now spilling freely down her cheeks. "It's my home, my whole life. I don't know what I would have done if you hadn't found it." "Well, you don't have to worry about that anymore," the officer replied with a warm smile. "We'll make sure these two face the full consequences of their actions. In the meantime, you should go check on your RV. I'm sure you'll want to make sure everything is in order." Marlene didn't need to be told twice. She hurried towards the vehicle, her eyes scanning it anxiously for any signs of damage. To her relief, it appeared to be completely intact, save for a few minor scuffs and scratches. She ran her hands reverently over the familiar exterior, a wave of gratitude and relief washing over her. "Oh, my dear," she murmured, "I'm so glad you're safe." Peering through the window, she could see that the interior was untouched as well. Everything was exactly as she had left it, a comforting reminder of the life she had fought so hard to reclaim. Marlene let out a shaky laugh, the tension finally starting to seep from her body. She was home. After all the uncertainty and fear, she was finally home. As the police officers continued to process the scene, Marlene settled into the driver's seat, the familiar hum of the engine soothing her nerves. She knew she had a long road ahead, both literally and figuratively, but in this moment, she felt a sense of peace and security that she hadn't experienced in far too long. With a deep breath, she fired up the engine and pulled out of the parking lot, determined to put this harrowing ordeal behind her once and for all. As Marlene's RV rumbled down the highway, she couldn't help but feel a deep sense of relief and gratitude wash over her. After the terrifying ordeal of having her home stolen, she was grateful beyond words to be back behind the wheel, her beloved vehicle safely in her possession once more. She glanced in the rearview mirror, watching as the distant flashing lights of the police cars faded into the horizon. Karen and her accomplice, Hank, had been apprehended and were now facing the consequences of their crimes. Marlene took a deep, steadying breath, knowing that she would likely have to testify against them in the future, but for now, she was just grateful to have her RV back. Reaching out, she lovingly patted the dashboard, her lips curving into a grateful smile. "We made it, girl," she murmured. "We're safe now." As she continued down the highway, Marlene couldn't help but reflect on how much this ordeal had shaken her. She had always taken the security and stability of her RV for granted, but now she realized just how easily it could all be taken away. The thought of losing her home, her entire life, had been utterly terrifying. But she had fought hard to get it back, using her wits and her federal badge to outsmart the thieves. And in the end, justice had prevailed. Marlene felt a deep sense of pride and accomplishment, knowing that she had stood up to those who had tried to take everything from her. As the miles rolled by, Marlene began to feel a renewed sense of purpose. This experience had shown her just how resilient and capable she truly was. She had faced her fears, fought for what was hers, and emerged victorious. And now, she was more determined than ever to make the most of her life on the road. Reaching into the glove compartment, she pulled out a well-worn map, tracing her fingers over the routes she had yet to explore. With a new sense of anticipation, she began to plot her next journey, eager to see what adventures and experiences awaited her. No longer would she simply be a passive victim, cowering in fear of the unknown. Marlene was a fighter, a survivor, and a true force to be reckoned with. And as she fired up the engine and pressed on down the highway, she knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, she was more than ready to face them head on.